and welcome back to Perfect 10, the pop culture podcast where we explore the media we love. I'm your host, Michael Cohen. So, what exactly is a Perfect 10? It has nothing to do with a review score. A Perfect 10 is a piece of media that resonates with us and hopefully you too. It's about the pop culture that shapes us and why we love it. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Curtis, Dan, Brian, Mark, Sherston, and Brian B. And to all our Patreon supporters, your contributions make this podcast possible. You can head to patreon.com/thunderquack to get early access to Perfect 10, exclusive podcasts, and more. You there, what episode is it? I'll tell you what episode it is. It's the Muppet Christmas Carol with Danielle. Welcome back to the podcast.
Before we started recording this, I decided to rush and watch it one last time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and gosh, I'm always amazed by just like how good it is every single time. But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Had Before watching this film, had you seen any other versions of The Christmas Carol, or had you read the book?
As a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So this is a funny one because I do like love and appreciate the Muppet Christmas Carol. It's not my Christmas Carol because my Christmas Carol is the Mickey Mouse one. The
Okay.
one
Yep.
with Scrooge McDuck and Goofy as Jacob Marley and like all that stuff, right? Like and Jimmy
Yeah.
Cricket and like that's 1000% my Christmas Carol. And then after that, it would be the episode of Ghostbusters where the Ghostbusters go on a call to, like it's like Westchester or something like that. And they end up in a snowstorm. And when they come out of the snowstorm, they are in Dickens, London, and they catch the three ghosts,
Is it from
the three
the old
spirits.
Ghostbusters cartoon?
Yeah, from
Oh, okay.
the real Ghostbusters from the first season, and it's a fantastic episode because then the four of them end up having to basically pretend to be the three spirits because if they don't, Christmas basically is like ruined. Um,
Mm,
yeah, it's a great episode. So, yeah, when I think of a Christmas Carol, those are the ones that I go to first. Like those
right,
are the first two. Um, but obviously this one is also so good.
right.
But I
Because
haven't.
the Mickey Mouse one was the same for me. Like I
Mhm.
still to this day I haven't even read the novella or anything, but the Mickey's animated Christmas Carol was my first
Yeah.
like Christmas Carol take. That said, even though I liked it, when I saw this one, I was trying to remember if I had seen it in theaters, and most likely I had at that point. Um, but I just remember, for whatever reason, it was kind of like, okay, this is the definitive Christmas Carol for me, and
Hmm.
like, like I just kind of took the Mickey one and was like, I don't need you anymore, and tossed it out. But it's funny because as I was thinking about it, weirdly enough, even though I enjoyed the Mickey one, it was more of like almost like a Sunday school type of warning. You know,
Hmm.
does that make sense? Like, oh, this person was a bad man, and if you ever act like this, you're gonna burn in hell
Yeah.
too. Eh,
The yeah the I mean the Mickey Mouse one is so brief, right? Because
yeah,
I think it probably is like a 22-minute or like 30-minute.
yeah,
I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what the runtime is, but it's like a lot of those Christmas specials of that era from like the 60s up until like the 80s. They're like either 22 or 44 minutes, right?
yeah,
They're TV timed. So like this version obviously gives you way more breathing room and gives you like the full uh the full experience. I mean, like, honestly, I think that the Muppet Christmas Carol is one of the most faithful adaptations, despite it being full of Muppets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like a lot of the dialogue is straight from the book.
Right.
It's straight from the text. So it's actually quite accurate. It's quite like almost like slavish to the source material in a way that I find that like a lot of other adaptations go like, ah, you guys kind of know the story, right? And then they breeze through.
Yeah.
Um, especially if you watch the version with the deleted song, that
Mm-hmm.
gives you even more of the context for Scrooge's past love,
Yeah.
rather than it just sort of being like, oh yeah, there's that girl, right, and then you kind of move on from it.
Yeah.
um before we get too much deeper into it, I just want to give my this one's a quick one, guys. I don't think that this one needs a lot of explanation. This one is actually pretty simple. It's the Charles Dickens classic, A Christmas Carol, but with Muppets. If you need a deeper explanation than that, you're probably not ready for this podcast. So go watch some Muppets and crack a book or two. Like this one, like they made a movie. It was A Christmas Carol, but instead of all of the characters in it being human beings or ghosts, they're just replaced with Muppets. Just
Mm-hmm.
and some of the best Muppets. I mean, like, this is the golden era of I think like the big screen Muppet stuff, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
as
Between
much as
this
the
and
classics are classics, like this
Muppet
is when
Treasure
they did some
Island and
really
this
cool
one
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
were
and
the
Muppets from
best.
Space, right?
Yes.
Like those three, I we can look at that and go like, wow, this is like really when I mean, like, it's tough because you don't want to say that the stuff post Jim Henson is better. I just think that, like, I love the Muppet movie. I love it so much. It's such a like the style of movie that it is. It's such a meandering like journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's a little unclear at times, like, where exactly are we going with this? What's happening? And it can be a little bit muddled, but the jokes are all on point. Like, the comedy is top notch in the Muppet movie. But um like at Muppets Take Manhattan, I find to be like, it's a tough watch nowadays. Like, it's
Yeah.
just it's just it's all over the place. It's all over the place. But then when they came back and they did the three, they did this one, Muppet Treasure Island, and Muppets from Space.
Space, yeah.
I think all three are really tight movies, right? And then on top of that, you've got the Henson Company, I think, at like the top of their game, really showing off, like the like the peak of their skills,
Well, I
right?
wonder too if that's like a generational thing. So you got to think like they came out, the Muppets became a thing in the late
Hmm.
70s. And I don't remember exactly when Sesame Street got started, but that's still kind of in that same realm.
Yeah,
So they were kind of
yeah,
finding their feet, figuring out, like obviously Sesame Street is for small school age children. And then I'd say the Muppets are kind of in like what was supposed to be like the not so much teen, but like the adult area of it, but it's still
yeah,
good wholesome fun for everyone if need be. And so you've once you get to like the early mid 90s, I kind of forget when Muppets in Space came out. I want to say it was like early 2000s, something like that. Um but it's kind of like that block of, oh, I grew up with Sesame Street and now I'm familiar with who the Muppets are. And then at the same time, Jim Henson is, you know, moved through those stages of like figuring out Sesame Street, figuring out the Muppet Show, figuring out how to do films with Muppets, or, you know, something like Dark Crystal, or something like,
hmm
just Muppets in Manhattan, something like that. So you get to that little point where it's like we're at our peak. We've got an audience age range that is familiar with Muppets talking to real people. And then it kind of disappears after Muppets in Space. And then you've got like this age generational gap. and then they try to revive them for, Disney purposes, IP launch, and you've just come to a place where we've kind of aged out of it, sort of thing, per se, but the younger generation isn't all that familiar with it. They grew up with more choice of things to watch than just PBS.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think that's why why the Muppets as a whole kind of flounders nowadays, whereas in the 90s it was like, yeah, Muppets. And plus two, we had Muppet Baby cartoons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we got it from like every type of scenario. And I think out of all those films, I think they can be accessible to anybody. But
Hmm.
out of all of them, I feel like this one's the most easiest to step into because I was a big Muppet person as a kid. But my kids don't, like they're vaguely aware culturally of what
Hmm.
Sesame Street is, but they've never actually sat down and really like watched it, except maybe my oldest, who's 16, and the younger ones, like they have no clue. They couldn't really name off anybody. But every Christmas, I put on the Muppet Christmas Carol, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this film."
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they just kind of take it at face value of like, okay, these are puppets and people talking to puppets. But um, I don't know. I guess it just kind of doesn't have that flavor of nostalgia for them to hold on to, being familiar with, who is Gonzo, who is Rizzo, who is Kermit, who is Piggy. But at the same time, they still enjoy it because it's silly enough, Muppet wise, for a kid to enjoy. But somebody who has like zero investment in either the story or Muppets in general, like my husband, he can still come in and watch it and be like, "Oh yeah, Michael Caine," you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's that good first step for anybody who wants a good Christmas story, wants a well acted one, and still enjoys silly humor. It's just coming from a puppet.
Yeah.
So.
I think yeah, there's definitely a component I think in terms of timing that especially Muppet Christmas Carol is it's definitely drafting off of like the establishment of the Muppets, right, through the
Hmm.
Muppet Show, Muppet Movie. But then especially I think for our generation, like you nailed it, the Muppet Babies I think is the that's why most of us are Muppet fans. If you're like sort of in that like mid to late 80s range, I
Hmm.
think you grew up watching Muppet Babies, and that was your window into the Muppets. And then like thankfully for me, like Muppet Show was still on in reruns sort of thing. Like you could catch old episodes of the Muppet
Yeah.
Show. So like I had seen some of that. The the Muppet movie was a thing that was like on repeat in my house. But one of my earliest memories when I was about 5 years old was that we had everybody had like the hi-fi, right, like the vinyl set up with the like all like the stack right in your living room.
Mm-hmm.
And I we only ever had like a few albums because my parents weren't really music people, right? Like I mean my dad was musical, he was a musician, but we didn't like it was I don't know, they just weren't really like the type to have like a huge record collection or a bunch of cassettes or whatever, right? Like they kind
Oh,
of
we
had their
did.
few
Yeah.
things. But
Towers. Towers.
oh yeah, one of the things that we had that always like jumped out to me was the Muppet movie soundtrack.
Mm.
And I would sit like I have such vivid memories of like being like 4 and 5, sitting on my rocking horse in the living room with the headphones on with like the big cans, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I with the spiral cord plugged into the hi-fi
Yep.
like sound system. And it was a thing of like I wasn't allowed to touch anything, I was allowed to put the headphones on
Uh-huh.
and then sit there and listen to it front to back, right? Like I shouldn't say front to back because that implies flipping it, but yeah, like I was allowed to listen to it until it was done, and then go tell somebody that it was finished, and they would turn it off. But because I wasn't allowed to push any buttons. um but yeah, like I can picture it. Like it's such a like sense memory sort of thing.
Mm.
um but like I just loved the Muppets. Like just the characters themselves. Like just the very fact that they existed was just, and it still remains. I mean, like to this day, if I walked into a room and Kermit the Frog was standing there, I think I'd probably be as starstruck by Kermit as I would be by, like any movie star that
Hmm.
you could name. I Yeah, like I just like the magic of those characters is something that I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think the thing with the Muppets is that I think they I think you either get it or you don't, right?
Yeah, it's like an acquired humor sense. Like
Yes.
it always reminds me a bit of like British humor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it's a little like weird and slightly off-putting, but either you're going to find it hilarious or you're going to be like, what is
Yeah.
this?
I think I do
Muppets is like that.
I think you have to have something just a little bit wrong with you, right? I Because that's like a thing of like it's not like, oh, you got to be like a little bit like messed up in the head or something. It's like, no, the thing about the Muppets is that they are like by definition a lovable band of misfits, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the whole deal. And so if you don't relate to that, i think I think it's hard to then like get into it, right? Like, but if
Mhm.
but if you do relate to that, if you do feel yourself like you are a misfit and a little bit outside of the norm, right? Then you're gonna gravitate towards them. And the more outside of the norm you feel, the more you're gonna really, really relate to Gonzo, right?
Yeah. It,
He's kind of that character for even amongst the Muppets. Gonzo is the one that's outside the sort of like the normative Muppet
uh-huh.
space.
The weirdo of the group. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like that's his whole deal. Um,
I
and
think I
honestly,
think too
like,
that that's what breaks those, so those three films, The
yeah,
Carol, Treasure Island, and then In Space, that's kind of why they work in a way, is because
hmm,
like with Michael Caine, he's even said in interviews like, I just treated them as another actor because it's so outrageous.
yeah,
And you see that come across beautifully. uh, but because he's selling it so well, you're like, okay, yeah, I know these are felt puppets, but like they have their own sense of reality along with them, not just for the great performances of the puppeteers, but because he's playing off of them so well,
yeah,
it makes you think they're real. Whereas you have something like Muppet Treasure Island, and Tim Curry is so chaotic, like he could be a Muppet, and
yeah,
so it's less of like a human playing off the Muppets and more of just like he's part of that cohesive piece.
yes,
And you get that a little bit in Muppets in Space, but it's kind of getting into that area of like, we put stars in this film and they're holding back their excitement of, oh my gosh, I'm with
yeah,
playing alongside Muppets, to where you kind of get in like the more modern day Muppet films where it's like, I'm a celebrity playing off this childhood Muppet I love.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like those two perfect films of like different reasons why they work, but
It's
they work because of
yeah.
that.
There's a lot of restraint in both Christmas Carol and Treasure Island, in the sense that like um they really like take the world that they're in seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Muppets from Space is a little bit different because Muppets from Space is about the Muppets, right?
Right.
So like with the other two, like we're taking classics and we're adapting them, so we're going into a literary world, so the suspension of disbelief is already built into that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think like like that avenue in is a little bit easier to navigate than it is when you start to do, and Muppets from Space is the first one that starts to get um it starts to get like sort of in the postmodern sense of meta, like it starts to get very self-referential.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like you go all the way back to the first two, you go to the Muppet movie and Muppets Make Take Manhattan. um those are obviously also very full of cameos and, like, big stars dropping in to do bit parts and stuff. But I think the types of stars that they brought into those movies, they were very careful about and very thoughtful about that. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of them had been people who had been, especially with the Muppet movie, a lot of them had been people that had been on the Muppet Show, right? So they knew the deal. They knew, like, they like Steve Martin. I
Yeah, I was
think
about to say, I think Steve Martin is one
he's
that
like
comes to my
Steve Martin.
mind.
I think is who you look at and you go, like, at the time in 1978, 79, when the Muppet movie came out, like, you couldn't get a bigger celebrity than Steve Martin. And
Yeah.
I know that that's hard, probably hard for younger listeners to believe that, like, Steve Martin was ever at that height, but he was one of the most well-known people on the planet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when he was touring and doing, he was the first stand-up comedian to really do arenas, right? For it
Mm-hmm.
to get to that stage and for people to come out in those numbers, like, he's one of the ones that really, like, set that bar. Um, and so when he would do the Muppet Show, which he did multiple times, and he did the movie, it was like there was a, and I think that it comes from the fact that Steve Martin is a magician, right? Like, he's a trained magician. He worked at Disneyland. He gets it, and I think also working at Disneyland in that era that he worked at Disneyland, I think, is also a big part of that. That,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
he understands that, like, there's a, like, honestly, it's the prestige, right? Like, that's what it is. Like, there's a prestige to working with the Muppets, because they are, the M in Muppet is, it stands for magic. That's what that is. Like, that's what that means. So, like, that is the difference between being on a show that has a puppet in it or having a Muppet in your production, right?
Yeah.
Because a puppet is this thing with a guy's hand up its butt making its mouth move, but Muppets are Muppets.
Yeah.
Right? And and there's a reverence to it, there's a way that they're treated. But when you get into, I think, like, more modern stuff, like post 2000 stuff, you're really getting into, um because everything in media at that point starts to become self-referential, and I like a little bit of the snake eating its own tail,
Mm-hmm.
with the comedy. And I think it's diminishing returns on that, and when you get the celebrity cameos, that is a little bit of what you end up dealing with,
Yeah.
right? It's, I mean, Muppets, the like the movie with Jason Segel, I think, it, one of the reasons why that one does work is because he and Amy Adams, like, they got it, like, they
Yeah.
understood. But then there are a lot of, like, the guest stars and, cameos and whatever, that it's like, it's what you're saying, where it's very like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm in a movie with a Muppet, right?
Yeah.
Which, like, those earlier ones didn't have that. And I but then Christmas Carol and Treasure Island, even more so, like you said, like, Michael Caine just treated them as other actors,
Mm-hmm.
which you really, really see with the spirits specifically, right? that
Yeah.
that like, the way that he interacts with, I think, like, because the meat of this movie really centers on Christmas Present, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that Muppet, the Ghost of Christmas Present, is so important to this film, and so well done. And his interplay with that character, with that performer, is so on point. It's really where, like that's where, if it's gonna hit you, that's where it's gonna hit you, right? The
Yeah.
other stuff is kind of like, hit or miss sometimes, I think. But in terms of, like, the core of the Christmas Carol story, that's where it's going to work or not work. And for me, like, it works. Like last
Oh,
night when
yeah.
I was watching, it's like, it's hard not to get emotional when it really starts to hit for Scrooge, like, when he really starts to see that, like, man, when they go to his nephews and they're playing the game, and where it's going, and then it hits and they laugh. I sound like I'm getting emotional. It's just early in the morning. It hits and they laugh. I But then we cut back to Scrooge, and Michael Caine just looks so
Gut
heartbroken.
punched, yeah.
Yeah, and the spirit is also there, and the way that he is sort of reacting of like, he's been very jovial, he's been very like sort of like, oh, like let's take a look at this, let's take a look at this.
Yeah. He's more
But then
subdued, yeah.
in that moment, yeah, like he kind of like, it's very somber, right? And that's
Mhm.
why I think when we first start to notice that he's aging rapidly, right, that the
Yeah.
ghost of Christmas Present is aging rapidly. So um yeah, like it, like that, it's that moment is really like, that to me is like the linchpin of the whole thing, right? Like if you don't buy in that moment to what this story is about, I just don't think it's going to work for you. Um but for me, like, yeah, like it got me, like, and it, like, that hurt, that was painful, in the way that a good movie is painful, right?
Yeah.
But thankfully we also have Gonzo and Rizzo just like popping up every, I 5 to 10 minutes, to keep it moving, and to keep it light, and to keep it, I feeling like it's the Muppets.
Yeah.
um
Yeah,
and
it works out really
yeah.
well because you get you know, you'll get to like the meat of the main story, and there are some emotionally heavy beats, and it's like,
Hmm.
let's lighten it up and throw them in there. But at the same time, there can be too much Muppet, and then when it starts to get a little silly, the story starts to drag,
Hmm.
which in this film works beautifully because there really is no like, ooh, it's getting heavy, silly little rat moment, and then you're like, oh, I feel better about myself, but it doesn't linger, and
Yeah.
then we're back to the story, and then that emotional weight starts to weigh upon you again, and another little silly moment, and it just back and forth. So as an audience member, you're not feeling awkward being left in this heavy moment for too long, and
Hmm.
little kids aren't starting to get cloudy eyed at it. There's something silly to grab their attention, but at the same time, because they keep layering each other back and forth, it helps to push that story along. So you never feel like you're stuck in one spot for too long. Um,
Yeah.
Especially with all the music too, and even all of it's kind of joyful in their own way. It kind of helps ease some of that tension, but still keep you invested, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because people will get like, so you start talking about this movie at Christmas time, and people will be like, "Oh, but you got to watch the full cut. You got to watch the full version
The one with the song.
with the deleted song." And that's what I watched last night. And
Yeah.
as this song is going on, I'm like, "There's a reason they cut this. There's a
Uh-huh.
reason they cut this." And it's not that it's a bad song, but it
It's
does
where it drags.
mess with the pacing.
Yeah.
It really does. Like, you can see that they went like, you know what, if we cut this out, it's 2 minutes on the runtime.
Yeah.
It's not really making that big of a difference, but boy, does it make a difference, sort of thing. And so I love it. I love when you can have that choice, and like, you've got the extra feature, like the special features and extras and stuff, where it's like, watch it with this, right? Because as a film aficionado, as somebody who studies the stuff, um to me, it's always such a great thing to see it, and then to be able to go, yeah, okay, because deleted scenes are fun. Like, I love deleted
Mm-hmm.
scenes. It's one of my favorite things of like that early 2000s DVD era, audio commentaries and deleted scenes, because and deleted scenes with audio commentaries, oh boy. I Because I want to, I don't just when I love a movie, I don't just want to watch the movie. I want to know everything there is to know about that movie,
Yes.
right? I want to dive into it. I want to see it from every angle. I want to hear what they were thinking when they made it. I want to hear the things that the filmmakers or the actors were surprised by in the process of making the movie, right? The things that they discovered, because to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's the point of the art. Like, that's what we're doing, is that we want to, like, see, see what we can see, honestly. Like, that's the whole point of doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to learn about ourselves? What are we going to discover? um and yeah, so when something like that is added into the features, and you can go in and you can just watch the scene by itself, or you can watch the movie with the scene added back in.
Right.
And it is one thing, I think, to go in and watch the scene by itself, which I think, like, it's very beautifully sung song. It's very, like, meaningful when Michael Caine joins in towards the end of it.
Yeah.
It becomes very emotional and very, very poignant. But in the film itself, it does make that Christmas present sequence, even though I said earlier, like, it's good. It's like, that's one of the things that makes it one of the truest adaptations in terms of pacing a movie. It brings it to a crawl until you get out of it, and then
Yeah.
and it's tough because you're going from that into Christmas Future,
Yeah.
and that's when the movie is, and I mean, that's when the story itself is like, this is going to be heavy, this is going to be a lot,
Yeah.
um especially for kids. And so I think, like,
Yeah.
it's the right call to not have this heartbreaking song about, lost love and broken hearts in your Muppet movie, when you're also about to deal with the death of a small frog.
Yeah.
um yeah, an adorable, kind-hearted, wonderful little frog.
It is
um
weird though. I because I remember watching it on VHS tapes
mhm,
over and over and over, and obviously the song, like, it wasn't taken out; it was in the film,
yeah,
um, on that version of it, and so it was kind of like burnt into my brain. And it was, even as a kid, I remember being like, "Oh, the song's pretty, but gosh, it is long."
yeah,
But it gave so much of an emotional weight that I think maybe on some level you get as a kid, but as an adult, it really drives it home. Like, yes, we understand this guy's like horrible and callous and jaded and sort of thing, but and you just kind of like put him into a box of like, okay, he's horrible, and then just push it off to the side. But you gotta, and Michael Caine does a good job of making it seem like he derives pleasure from others' misery. But the
hmm,
song really drives home of like, he's a hurt person hurting other people just to kind of like feel that void that will never quite go away.
yeah,
That's why he hates it. And just musically too, like the musical cues, because the one I watched right before we started recording was the one where the song is cut out. And so it's like building to this emotional moment. You can kind of hear it in the score. And because I've seen the original version, I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah.
here it comes. And then with the edited version, it's like, and Rizzo's suddenly crying, and Gonzo's comforting him, and it's like
Mhm.
all that happened was the lady got up from the bench and walked away. Like why is there suddenly a sad score that I haven't heard yet being played and the rat's crying? What's happening?
Yeah,
And then it
yeah,
doesn't pick up again till the very end. And if you've been paying attention, you're like, "Oh, okay, this song sounds familiar. This is the song that was playing when Belle left." And then he starts singing the lyrics with everyone in the entire town crammed into Bob Cratchit's house.
yeah.
But yeah, so if you haven't seen that original version, it does kind of throw you off a bit of like, wait, where did this song come from and why does it sound familiar?
Mhm.
But at the same time, when you watch the complete film intact, it's kind of like, okay, this drags, but at least now I know where this comes from, and at least now I know why people are crying, and at least now I know why he's so miserable in life.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. This is one of the points of it that I think that where they get the adaptation more correct than some of the other ones. Like you say, the Mickey Mouse Christmas Carol one feeling a little bit more like a Sunday school. Hey, you better be nice, or
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna go well. Um, Whereas this one, like, you when you start the movie and he's just sort of being he's not just grumpy. Like, I think, like, the Scrooge McDuck one is just quite grumpy. He's like, I
Yeah.
hate Christmas. Like, it's just everybody's so cheery and obnoxious and annoying. But with this one, he is genuinely mean
Mm-hmm.
for his own pleasure, right? Like,
Yeah.
is saying terrible things with a smile on his face
Yeah.
because he thinks that what he's saying is humorous. And there's a reality to that, that I when you meet some older people, and this isn't a generation, I'm not saying like, oh, when you meet boomers, but I just mean like throughout my life, sometimes you meet people who are like, you know, senior citizen aged, right? And and sometimes they just have that, they just have that sort of like that weird meanness that you're like, I don't understand why you're so mean to everybody. Like, I don't understand why all of your jokes are at somebody's expense. I don't understand why, you could say hurtful things and then not understand why people are upset that you've said those things,
Hmm.
right? But then when you watch this movie and you think about it, you think about this character's journey, and how he becomes Ebenezer Scrooge that we know, right?
Hmm.
That there is there it's it with the broken heart stuff and all of that, like it makes so much sense, because you're going like, well, it's he he made these mistakes as a young man, and his heart was broken, and as a result he decided, I'm never gonna let anybody get close to me ever again. And then that's a cycle that, like, as you live it, you then have to start sort of justifying the way that you're treating people, right?
Hmm.
And so that's, I think, where humor ends up coming in and being the thing that a lot of people use to go like, well, it's just a joke, can't you take a joke?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how many times have we heard that from somebody who is like genuinely mean, and then and when they are confronted about their meanness, they go like, well, I thought that you had a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And it's like, what you said wasn't funny, what you said was mean. You may think that because you phrased it in the form of a gag that it's a joke, but it's what you said was real, what you said was true. And that's where, like, when we meet Scrooge, that's where it's at. And that's the realization that he has, right? Like, that's the moment when he's watching his nephew, and the joke is at now at his expense, that he goes, wait, why would they do, like, it's, and this is all in Michael Caine's acting, this is all subtext, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the look on his face is, I thought I was loved. I thought, when I said, no, I'm not coming to your house for Christmas, I thought they were disappointed by that, right? I thought that I was denying them the pleasure of my company.
Hmm.
That's in his mind. That's what he thinks. He's like, oh, I have no time for frivolities, right? Like, get out of my face. And to see the reality of like them, this group of people around the parlor or whatever, playing this game, and them being like, thank God he didn't show up. Like, I invited him, but I invited him because it's the right thing to do, because I'm a good person. But
Right.
oh boy, did we dodge a bullet. Like, can you imagine if he walked through that door? It would ruin our day. Like, we're having such a great time, the group of us. And I think one of the great things that the Muppets do is that you've got these two humans, and then you've got, I think it's a pair of pigs, right? Like, there's a lot of pigs in this movie.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But there always is. There's always a lot of pigs in the Muppets. But I think there's a pair of pigs, and then there's like these weird sort of like monster frog grotesque, this
Oh,
couple,
uh-huh.
like it's very clearly like they're
The
young people
street
without kids,
scum.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's like these three couples sort of thing. And but one of the couples is like this weird, gross, like, they're these like green, like wart covered creatures. They're nondescript, like they're not anything really, they're Muppets, right?
Right.
um but that's the edge that Jim Henson and Frank Oz and like the original crew that they had, that they put into things, that with the newer stuff is lost, right?
Hmm.
It's just not there, of like a really subtle thing like that, of look at these weird monster things as they're like hanging out with these other characters, and nobody's paying any mind to that fact, Scrooge is the real monster,
Mhm.
because it's not what you look like, it's not what you are, it's not where you came from, it's the way you treat other people. That's what makes you a bad person in the
Yeah.
world of the Muppets, right? Because Muppets come in all shapes and sizes. They are as, diverse as the colors of the rainbow, and they're all valuable in their own ways, right? Like that is an undercurrent in the Muppets, whether you're talking about the Muppet Show or Sesame Street, or any time that the Muppet or Fraggle Rock, any time that any of these characters um, come into play, right?
Mm.
I And so often in these films, in the classic Muppet movies, like that is one of the lessons, is like but it's a subtle one. It's one that is, you're not being hit over the head with it. It's not like a Sunday school message, right? It is just inherent in the way that the Muppets tell a story, that
Mhm.
like Sweetums is named Sweetums, even though he's like, at the time, like the scariest Muppet, right? Like he's
Yeah.
this big giant monster. But hey guys, wait up! I want to come to, like, he's like, Sweetums is one of my favorite Muppets for that reason, because if you've ever listened to me talk about Star Wars, you know my thing about little guys, and like Sweetums is the best example that I could ever give you of that concept, right? Of like, he is this big giant monster, but on the inside he is just this like beautiful
He's the Chewie of the
being,
group.
right?
He's scary, he roars, and he can tear your
Exactly.
arms off, but he's really sweet.
Yeah, but actually all he wants is a hug. Like, all he
Yeah.
wants is to be friends. All he wants is to like sit down and have a nice meal with you. To be included, to not be on the outside, not be excluded, right? Like, this is the thing. Like, this is what the Muppets are about. Like, that's why they exist. That's what they're for. But you have to have that little bit of edginess to the story that the Muppets are telling, in order to bring those elements in.
Mhm.
um and you have to be okay with the world being a little bit ugly, in order to have that juxtaposition of sort of like the magic of the Muppets, and what they represent, what they stand for. So
Mhm.
it, like, that stuff, it works so. I think it's one of the reasons why this is such a great adaptation of A Christmas Carol, but be one of these holiday movies that stands the test of time. That even as special effects get better, or the songs in this movie don't really hit for me. Like, they're fine, but they don't really do it. Um,
Some do, some don't.
yeah,
The Christmas present one and then the one at the very end, um, they're the ones that kind of stick with me. Where it's like, okay, it's time to put up the tree. Like, I'll immediately start humming the songs from this movie.
yeah. Um, yeah, they've never really like resonated for me. Like, the Muppet Christmas Carol is one that, like, I saw it in the theater in 1992
Yeah,
when it came out.
92, yeah.
And I think I was a little bit too young for the third act,
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
like
it's pretty
that Christmas future stuff. Like, I think that it was just a little bit too scary, for me at that age.
spooky.
I don't recall being like scared, just being like,
This is
because
uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah, because I would have been like 7, so I was at that age of like, as a 7-year-old boy, the youngest of three. Like, I have older brothers, and my oldest brother is almost 5 years older than me, and I
Yeah.
would have been at the movie with him. I like, that's who I would have been with him, and my other brother, and my parents would have probably been Christmas shopping, while they left us at the movie theater with my oldest brother. And I there would have been a lot of bravado of like, I'm not scared of this,
Mhm.
but I would have felt like put off by it, because I was actually scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like doing that thing of like, I'm not scared, but like, in reality, that's why I don't like it. And so, I mostly would have watched this when it was sort of on TV, by virtue of the fact that it was the era of, well, this is what's on, and
Yeah.
it's we're decorating Christmas cookies, or trimming the tree, whatever it is, whatever Christmas activity we're doing on that Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night. When probably a Sunday night for this, because it's Disney. So it would have been Wonderful World of Disney during December. One of those 4 weeks, this is the movie that's going to be playing, and so it
Yeah.
would just be on because that's what was on, right? And not necessarily because I would have chosen it, but and so like I would have been like kind of grumpy about it. I can like I know me. And the other thing is that A Muppet Family Christmas, which is the one that's more of like the TV special, and it includes all of the Muppets, not just the Muppet Show Muppets, but like the Fraggles are in that as well. And I was a huge Fraggle Rock kid. And then Big Bird also shows up in that, along with a handful of other Muppets from other things.
Uh-huh.
So like that's one where it's like that's a Muppet Show Christmas special, where they're like, these are not the characters. It's not Kermit playing Bob Cratchit, right?
Mhm.
It's Kermit as himself, the actor, who is also like the creative director of the Muppet Show, right? But they all, like, the whole conceit of that one is that like they get to Fozzie's grandma's house, and it's like, oh yeah, like we've been working so hard, we all really need this break for Christmas. And so they all go to Fozzie's grandma's house to have like a nice Christmas vacation holiday together. And so like they're literally like they're on vacation from the Muppet Show.
Mhm.
So they're the performers, the Muppets, right? And that's where like the Muppets, I think, are one of the first things that really gets into that whole meta. And there's a little bit of that in this one too, because Rizzo at the beginning is kind of like, Gonzo, what are you doing? Like,
Oh, yeah.
because he's like,
Why are
I'm
you dressed
Charles
like that?
Dickens. Yeah, he's like, I'm Charles Dickens, and he's like, since when?
Yeah.
And that I love so much of that stuff, but yeah, Muppet Family Christmas was the one where like I have such vivid memories of that as a kid, as part of Christmas and as part of my love of the Muppets.
Mhm.
That's the introduction of the Muppet Babies, by the way. It's the very first time that we ever see them, and they're puppets, not cartoons. But that's the first time that we ever see them is in Muppet Family Christmas, and I loved it so much. And so then when this sort of like ended up taking that spot, right? Because up until this movie came out, that would play every Christmas, and then
Mhm.
this movie comes out, and all of a sudden, Muppet Christmas Carol is the thing that's on, and there's no. This is the I mean, Muppet Family Christmas is from the '80s, but this is the early '90s. There's no VHS tape of A Muppet Family Christmas. It was a TV special.
Mm.
The only way that you could watch it was on TV, and so it would be like decades before I was able to get my hands on a copy of it again, and watch it again. And it was like this. It was almost like a sore spot every year at Christmas because it's the one that I wanted to watch. It was like there was like Rudolph, I and then I mean like Jingle All the Way would eventually come in there, and Elf, but Rudolph, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Muppet
Mm.
Family Christmas were things that like every year around that time I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, when this took that spot, I think it kind of like it. I took it personally as a kid because I didn't have anywhere to put those feelings. Right? It's like when is I want to watch the Muppet Christmas special because I didn't
Mhm.
know what it was called. I was just called it the Muppet Christmas special, right? And I would say that to my parents, and they would look at the TV guide and they would be like, "Oh, well, Muppets, it's this day," and then
Yeah.
it would come on and it would be this, and I would be like, "This is not what I was talking about. Like this, Big Bird's not in this." The
Right.
Fraggles are not in this. There are no Doozers here. What are we like? What are you talking about? This isn't what I want. Um, which would have been like '93. So I was like 8 years old. So I'm old enough to like, should be old enough to handle my stuff, but but I didn't. I didn't because I don't know. Christmas is like a whole thing with my family. So I yeah, I don't know. I was just, I it I always I think I avoided this because it became that thing. And so like I haven't
Ah.
really like I haven't watched it since I watched it on TV. Like since it would have like aired on TV, would have been the
Oh.
last time that I watched this from start to finish. Um, So I think that's also one of the reasons why like that music just doesn't really hit for me. It doesn't really resonate for me.
Mm.
Because I'm the whole time that I am watching this as a kid, I am thinking this isn't the Muppet Christmas special,
See,
right?
that's funny though, because I mean, when we were growing up, like Christmas themed TV specials or movies were pretty common.
Hmm.
Um, and but you've seen a whole bunch. We've had things like, I don't remember if you remember, like Jingle All the Way,
Hmm.
or like some people love to talk about Die Hard, or um,
Yeah,
the one episode we did with Batman Returns or whatever, and then obviously the big staple one that a lot of people would think of is like Nightmare Before Christmas, and rightfully so. But of all those style of Christmas films, Elf, this is the one that when I think of Christmas, this is the film that I think of for whatever reason.
hmm,
And I don't know if it's just the vibe, because they all have Christmas. Like everybody, somebody says Christmas, and there's either the snow or the tree or the presents, or people discussing family,
yeah,
whatever. But for whatever reason, the supposed Christmassy themes that you would associate with a Christmas story, this is the one that I always think of because it seems to hit the most core themes in the best way, effectively, because we think, okay, Christmas is like a childhood thing, and
hmm,
we see in this one, like Miss Piggy's pig daughters and Kermit's frog sons and whatever, and then of course we're taken back to when Scrooge is a child, but it's always like really lonely. And I think that plays really well. Like, you've got some kids out there who, they may not have much or whatever, but they've got family who love them, that family connectedness. But at the same time, you've also got kids who, may have absent parents, or parents just who aren't engaged, or for whatever reason don't celebrate the standardized Christmas, and so they kind of feel left out from their school peers, or their parents can't afford anything, and so they're just kind of awkwardly having a day out of school. um and then of course, it's got the snow aspect to it. Although I will point out, when I was watching it again, for the most part, this film has snow in every scene
hmm,
except for the future bit where it's just raining and there's no longer any snow on the houses, there's no snow on the ground. It's just rain.
yeah,
Um and then of course, like the Christmas caroling, you've got the little rabbit going to sing, and then you've got the people singing together, and of course all the songs, and a lot of people like to have family parties, and so you've got Fozzie party. And but at the same time, it also touches on these things of like, there's people who still find joy in Christmas, like the little rabbit going up to sing Christmas carols, but at the same time he doesn't have anything. That scene to where he is wrapped up in the newspaper, shivering
hmm,
as Scrooge walks by. As a little kid, I thought, "Oh, that's so sad, poor bunny." As an adult, I'm listening to what Scrooge is actually telling, the charity guys and his nephew and the rabbit himself, of like, "Oh, well, there's homeless people, well, let's help them." And he's like, "No, just send them into a prison or let them die." And I was like, oof, that
yeah,
feels a little touchy for modern day, when we're like, let's tear down the homeless encampments, or just throw them in jail
yeah,
because they couldn't pay their increased rent. It hits hard. And that was a thing of, especially when I was in my first Christmas as an adult. Like, we could barely pay our rent, we could barely
yeah,
feed ourselves, but it was like this idea of, oh, it's Christmas, it's magical, like I have to go out of my way to decorate this tiny poor excuse of a tree because it's magical and it's special. It has that special childlike essence to it that I want to draw a good feeling from. um or like in my husband's case, it was four kids and a single mom whose husband had just died, and she barely makes enough to pay her house and feed her kids, but she's going to go out of her way and even go into debt just to make sure her kids have Christmas presents to open, to make that special for them. um so all those things that kind of embody Christmas, I feel are in this film that no other quote unquote Christmas film has. Like, it might talk about toys and it might talk about, you know, kids not connecting with parents, or it has snow or whatever. But I feel like all those beats that make up the concept of Christmas
Mhm.
are in the Muppet Christmas Carol. And I guess that's why it's become my favorite Christmas film, is because all those things of what is Christmas are included.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a there's a reason why A Christmas Carol is a timeless classic, and it's because these problems never go away,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like you're talking about, like the way that Scrooge talks at the beginning of the movie, and he's like, like, yeah, let them like put them in jail or let them die, like let them starve, deal with the surplus population, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oh boy, does that sure sound like the Republican slogan these last few years,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um,
Can't pay
and
their
I think
rent, throw them
about
in
that,
prison.
and I go, like, us millennials and our bleeding heart sympathies, and we're all radicalized and whatever. And it's like, how did we get this way? This is how. This is what did it,
Yeah.
right? It was the Muppets. It was all of the. It was, you know, um, it's a superhero cartoon shows. It was gargoyles. It was all of this stuff that we grew up with in the 80s and 90s, that was really, really hammering home the concept of, like, what it was to be a good person, what injustice looked like, and how to fight it, and to fight it, period. um Before the cynicism, it's sort of like, I feel like we're kind of sandwiched between the cynicism of the 70s and the early 80s, and then the cynicism of the 2000s,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that post 9/11 cynicism that I feel like we're just finally starting to come out of. And the reason why we're just starting to come out of it is because the generations that are getting older now, didn't they have no frame of reference for 9/11, right?
Yeah.
It's a thing that happened in the past, in the way that World War II is a thing that happened in the past, right? And
Oh, yeah.
Vietnam is a thing that happened in the past. So I we grew up in that era, especially in particular, like if you were between, I think, 5 and 10 years old during the 90s, um you have a sense of, like, no, this is what's right and this is what's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is good, this is bad, this, I think, like, movies like this are a really great example of why we grew up feeling that way. I mean, like, we were all very much raised by pop culture and by movies and TV and the media that we were ingesting, and a lot of it, so much of it, was this stuff, for better or worse, right? Because, I mean, like, when I get into this topic, I always point to Cartoon All Stars to the Rescue, the after school special where Slimer and Michelangelo and a bunch of other cartoon characters of the 80s and 90s told you that if you smoked weed, you were gonna become a degenerate thug, low life, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was part of the war on drugs, right?
Yeah.
And that's a thing that was, like, ingrained in me, and that it until I was an adult. And when I say adult, I mean, like, within the last 10 years, I sort of realized, like, oh, I have a lot of very, like, negative opinions of anybody who smokes weed or really does any drinks heavily, whatever, because Cartoon All Stars to the Rescue and TGIF made me think that these were the worst possible things that you could do, right? And so like
Mhm.
now I'm like, these are not a big deal. These things are not a big deal. Obviously, a drug problem is a drug problem. Alcoholism is an issue, but um, there was a point in my life where I was very judgmental of anybody who did anything.
Right.
Right, and like I was very like straight edge in that way of like looking at other people and going like, oh, you're such a bad person for
Well, I
smoking
think
weed
that's
and
how it was
getting high.
presented.
Yeah.
When they started doing drug testing at my daughter's high school for the first time
Mm,
ever, and she was very appalled of like, how dare they, I don't do any of these things, but how
yeah.
dare they intrude on my, like sense of self and
Yeah.
invade my privacy. To her, it was like a violation of privacy.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just kind of like, no, you just tell kids not to do it. It was presented as a moral failing.
Yeah.
And, once you go down that path, you're probably never going to come back.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there through the speech that they're giving to parents and to the teens, and there was no moral right or wrong. It was just like, hey, this stuff is out there. You're probably going to be influenced to do something.
Mm,
Try to be smart about it. Yes, there's, things that can help you get past it, but uh, you know, if you fall, then it's going to be really hard for you to pick yourself up.
mm.
Whereas for us, there is no picking yourself back up. It was just once you fell down, you're down.
Yeah, it in this time equated to like, yeah, falling to the dark side, right?
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was, and it's one of those things where it's like I say, that what Scrooge says at the beginning of this movie is very much like the rallying cry of conservatives in 2025. Um, and when we talk about, like, we get deeper into this subject and we talk about what we just talked about, it's like that you can see how that indoctrination happens, right?
Mhm.
Because it is creating those false equivalencies of like smoking weed is the same as doing, crack cocaine or heroin,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, it's a gateway drug. What, you do this and then before you know it, you're going to be strung out, or worse, you're going to be pushing it on other people and taking them down that dark path. And um and and in reality, in 2025, I think we can look at it and go like, well, I think like the only person you really harm when you smoke pot is
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Right, like it's like, oh, I'm gonna be unproductive today. Right, like that's
Yeah.
the, like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna spend more than I should on snacks. um yeah, like it's a thing, and many people use it in, I think, constructive and helpful ways, as like a, way to relieve stress, or deal
Mhm.
with anxiety and stuff like that. So like, but there's still this stigma attached around it, because of that era, which is like, all of that is just to say sort of like the good and the bad, right?
Mhm.
Like because I do think that like our sense of social justice, I generationally, is so strong because of movies like this, because not just the Muppet Christmas Carol, but everything from that era
Yeah.
directed at us had these sorts of messages. And I think that a lot of media for kids today, it's not that it has a good or bad message. I think that a lot of media for kids today is devoid of message.
Mhm.
And that's where, like, like there's a lot of stuff that I think is really fun and I like and I enjoy. The girls really want to go see the new SpongeBob movie because the trailers are working on them. They don't care about SpongeBob, but I think like these trailers have just worked on them, of like they've seen a few funny bits and they're like, we should go see that. And I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, absolutely. I expect to walk away from the SpongeBob movie with nothing
But a
of
good laugh.
value, right?
Yeah.
To have had a good time, for it to have been fun, but really to not really get like much of a message, right?
Mhm.
Dogman is one that, like, from last year, that like they really enjoyed, and I think it's really funny. It's got a lot of humor to it. It does have a message, but I think the message is really murky. It's really like,
Vague.
because like I can't remember the cat guy's name, but like he's sort of a bad guy, but is he really a bad guy, or is he just like a is he a product of his upbringing, or like the way that society treats him? Like it's the stuff is a little too heady for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they're not really walking away with much of a moral center that's been influenced by this movie, right?
Yeah.
um and I think that's why, I mean, K-pop Demon Hunters has come up so many times on Perfect 10 since it came out. And I think the reason why is because it is the first thing in a long time that I think appeals to everybody. It appeals to all ages, to boys, girls, men, women, everybody in between and outside of any of those spectrums,
Yeah.
or binaries, I should say. I, but it's that like there is actually something to be said in that movie. Like there is a conversation to be had coming off of that about like the pressures that we're all under and the way that we see ourselves and our self identity. And like there's a million things to talk about after watching K-pop Demon Hunters. And most movies these days, like they're just not doing that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a thing that I think that we've really lost uh from this era, which might just be a bias of the fact that it's when we grew up, right? So obviously we're gonna have like more of a
Well,
I
I
don't know, lean towards that. But
my thought on that is it's kind of like coming out of that. How do I want to word this? It's coming out of an era where a lot of things were gray for the most part, and your sense of right and wrong was very strict. Um, and then, like, the world just became like a darker place. So it was very cynical, like you said, in that 70s, 80s period. And then it was kind of like, well, okay, there's all these sort of like bad things. How can we think of the children and, make sure they don't morally stray? And
yeah,
so we did. Our generation got things that were very like, this is morally good, that is morally bad. And from that, like, there wasn't much gray in between. And when you find things that did, they're a little murky or they don't really dig into it. And then we kind of got into the 2000s era, and it's like, okay, well, it, this seems bad, so we're going to label it bad, but we're also starting to question, is it that bad, or how did it get that way? And so then we start to develop, like, well, is there a nuance to this situation? Which I don't think is a bad thing,
hmm
because that's kind of like that point, like it went from, drugs are bad, you're a bad person if you do them, to, here's the temptations, don't give in to it, but if you do, please know there's help, right? That's kind of how that shifted.
yeah,
Um, and to now where we're just kind of in like, well, we don't want to step on anybody's toes per se, or, well, what's bad from your point of view is good from my point of view, which is just its whole can of worms in its own right. Whether that person is right or wrong or not, we're still going to leave that space open for people to question sanity. um but there really is no sense of, this is right, this is wrong, what's the good thing to do here, what's the bad thing, should I stand up, should I sit down? There is no clear cut clarification of that today. And not to say we're doing it wrong, but I think that's part of the reason why things are kind of the way they are, is because where used to be lines, it's now you're having to make it up from your own judgment.
hmm hmm
And so, because of that, that leaves a lot of leeway for, you know, people with takes
yeah,
who believe they're right might not be, or people who question their take were probably right all along, but nothing good came of it because they questioned themselves. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean we've lived in a weird era, right? Because we grew up like in our childhood in a monoculture without the internet, where you had to knock on somebody's door to see if they could come out and play.
Yeah.
And you were allowed to you were allowed to just ride your
Yeah.
bikes around the neighborhood and exist. And there were dangers and stuff like that, but we navigated them, kind of together as a community. And now we live in these segmented echo chambers, um, without a monoculture, without community, without connectedness to our neighbors. So, like, everybody's afraid of everybody else.
Hmm.
um and yeah, like it's a I think one of the reasons why this is such a funny tangent for us to be getting off on, but um from the Muppet Christmas Carol, but I think one of the reasons why m- millennials as we get older are having such a difficult time dealing with a lot of stuff is
Mm.
because we have culture shock about
Yeah.
our own culture, right?
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning and you look out the window and the world that we see isn't the world that we were raised in, and it's, which I think is common. I think that this happens to every generation, but I think the the difference in the way that the world is now versus the way the world was when we were kids is so starkly different from the two or three generations that came before us,
Hmm.
right? The being like, what is that? It's the silent generation, boomers, and then Gen X,
Yeah.
right? Because I think that they grew up in a world that pretty closely resembled the world that they were adults in
Yeah.
for the most part. Gen X is kind of on that cusp, but I think for a lot of Gen X, they got to come of age at a time that was still pretty similar, where things hadn't gotten quite as disparate as they have now. But for us, it's like it's such a stark contrast, and I think that would be similar for people who were born before World War II,
Hmm.
right, and then lived through World War II, and then persisted afterwards. But I think maybe possibly going in the other direction, because I think that post World War II, in North America at least, and in the Western world, I bends towards socialism and positive change and
Right.
progressivism, and we're on the swing of that going back the other way. So it's like I think it's one of the reasons why we cling to nostalgia so much. I think it's one of the reasons why something that came out in 1992 like this can be
Hmm.
so meaningful to us, as opposed to, like, sticking with more modern stuff,
Sure.
and having those rose colored glasses, because obviously our perspective of the 90s was the perspective of a child in the 90s, right? And
Right.
not, like, I don't know about, I mean, I know now as an adult, I like academically about things that happened, you know, bombings and wars and conflicts and hostage crises and stuff like that.
Right.
But I wasn't experiencing them
Yeah.
at that age, right? Like I think the world was actually pretty good at protecting us from it back then, because we didn't have the internet.
Right.
So, at the 6 o'clock news would not have those stories. The 10 o'clock news or 11 o'clock news would,
Yeah.
right after prime time, is when they would inform your parents about all of the terrible things happening in the world. And the 5 or 6 o'clock news was about, you know uh,
The local.
yeah, like local, yeah, like, oh, this guy made the biggest Christmas tree this year in
Yeah.
his front yard, and it's like it would be like those little, like, culture bits and stuff like that,
Mm.
right? So I just don't think that we were as exposed to it, but we
So
were exposed to this stuff, and that's what I think made us feel like things are good, right? The world is good. We solved it. We did it. We did it, right? We solved world hunger. We solved racism. We solved,
nope.
right? It's like, no, all of those problems are still there. We just,
So to tie it into the cultural view shift, and then to touch back on you talking about, you
mm,
know, being a little scared of the ending, I'm going to tie it back to Christmas Carol's ending. Because you said you were more familiar with the Mickey Mouse one, which I
yeah.
had touched on at the beginning. So the ending of the Mickey one, if I recall, Pete is pretty much like Satan, and he's trying to get Scrooge McDuck to like go into his grave, and there's like flames everywhere, and he's trying to hold on to the edge of his dirt hole to not go into hell. And in this one, it's literally just this, what we would think of now as a Dementor, but Harry Potter wasn't a thing at the time for
Yeah.
us being kids. But just this towering, faceless figure with creepishly long, eerie
Yeah.
hands,
Grim
billowing
Reaper
gown.
esque, right?
Yeah, yeah, Reaper esque. And then so I remember watching the Mickey one and going, okay, so if you're a bad person, you're gonna land in hell, right? And that was kind of like an old way of thinking. You're a bad person, you do bad things, you burn in hell, sort of thing. And then we kind of get to the Muppet, where it's much more vague. Suddenly, you're not concerned. Scrooge's punishment isn't burning in hell. It's being alone and unloved.
Hmm.
And I always found that interesting because the one concept, the Mickey one, was scary, sure, on its own. But I found the one from Muppet Christmas Carol to be so much more unsettling. And to me, that's kind of like a thing. Like if I would ask my grandmother, what sounds scarier, being alone or burning in hell? Well, as a religious woman from that time period, they're going to be like, burning in hell is awful. That's the bad thing you want to avoid. Whereas as a millennial who's kind of like in that weird, like, I know what it's like to be social, but now as an adult, it's very isolating. I don't have any adult friends, you know. If my kids go away, am I just going to be alone forever, sort of thing? And so to me, that's almost a little scary, like I'm going to die leaving this world alone, miserable, and nobody's going to care. And but when my teenager saw this film, to her it was kind of like, yeah, he was a jerk, and he had it coming. He was lonely, but I mean, he gets to do whatever he wants, right? Like he just gets to sit there in silence and eat his bread and cheese and lay in a fancy bed. Like that doesn't sound so bad. So, and I don't know, like is that just the way be living life full of regret alone is an acceptable thing for them, because I was like, "Oh, that sounds awful," and they were just like, whatever." I
Yeah.
mean, even the smaller ones, they weren't freaked out by the Grim Reaper coming for this guy and him being sad that he was gonna die alone and no one loved him. It didn't phase them in the least. They were just like, "Yeah, makes sense. You die."
Yeah.
So I don't know. I found that curious upon reflection. Is like, is it the way we even go out, how Scrooge in these different variations goes out is now affected from a generational outlook. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's such an interesting thing because I think like kids now are confronted by so many things. I think they grow up too early as well. Like the internet is a thing that has definitely contributed to that. So like they're I think what's difficult right now is that some of them are not quite old enough to start expressing what's going on in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have conversations with kids and they say stuff and you're like, I have no idea where this is coming from. And as they get older, I think we'll be able to have conversations and figure out what their motivations are. But I do find that it's not hopelessness, because I don't see a lot of these kids as being like depressed,
Mm-hmm.
but there is sort of like a
Acceptance.
yeah,
Acceptance is
yeah,
the word I would
yeah,
use.
acceptance. I think you've hit the nail on the head with that's what it is that like they live in a world where like they're hearing all of these messages about like how terrible politics are
Mhm.
right now. Um, Climate change is going to destroy everything. The economy is about to collapse. Like, there really isn't a lot of good news to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think that it has affected them pretty deeply.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, if you present them with a situation like Ebenezer Scrooge, they're like, yeah, I could go either way, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, cuz
They really don't see the value in it.
like I said, you come from that time period when religion's a really big deal, and so this is a cautionary tale, right? In the end,
Yeah,
it don't be like, you know, do good in the world and you can avoid this terrible fate. For us, it was a cautionary tale of, you'll always have a chance to change it around, even if it's at the last second, but make sure you do because you don't want to end this way. And you're like, you're right. You know, re- I should have some self reflection and then change my mindset and my attitude and go out and do good in the world. Like that's a message that resonates with us.
yeah,
And like I said, for my daughter who's 16, she's just like, I don't know if she would hear this cautionary tale and take away, I need to change. Like
yeah,
Scrooge, like Michael Caine is doing a beautiful job of showing this slow evolution over this hour and a half of I'm bitter, I was lonely, I found someone I love, I didn't know how to express it, I messed it up, I became bitter, I'm now bitter about everything. But now I see the error of my ways. Now I see what people find joy in. I kind of want that too, but it hurts at the same time. But if I'm to be unloved and alone, then maybe I should put that effort into changing to find that joy. And for them, it's kind of like, is there enough joy in the world right now for me to put the effort into changing? Or is it easier to just accept, I'm going to be lonely all my life? Let me
mm.
just go sit in my dark house and eat some bread and cheese.
Yeah, yeah. It, yeah. They're growing up in a world where everybody is disconnected already, and that's just sort of like status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, like you use the word acceptance, and I think that that is so apt because I think that that's just where they're at, where they're like, yeah, this is what the world is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas I think that our instinct when we see the world going the way that it is like, shouldn't we be fighting this?
Yeah.
Aren't we supposed to be fighting this? Isn't that what everybody said that we were supposed to do? Um, and I think obviously we see the negative effects of all of the isolation and everything. And so we want to fight that, right?
Yeah.
But they really haven't known anything else. It's that is a very interesting aspect of it. And I don't know. I didn't watch this with my girls because just the timing didn't work out this weekend. I would have liked to have watched it with them and gotten their pulse check on it and see how
Right.
they reacted to it. Um, but I also don't. This is gonna sound very like almost elitist, but it's not how I mean it. This is not a thing that Crystal and I did on purpose, so I don't take credit for it. It's just a byproduct of the way that we've ended up raising the girls. They're very offline. Like they don't do
Mm-hmm.
YouTube stuff. They don't like they don't play Roblox or Minecraft or anything like that. Not because they don't have access to it. They do. It's just not where we've put our time, and it's not where their interests are.
Mm.
So the way that they react to things, I don't take as particularly typical of the larger experience. And also I think that there right now is a very big difference between Canada and the United States. I think when we were younger,
Really?
yeah, when we were younger, I think the difference was a lot less stark. And because it's a thing that
Yes.
always bugs me, especially being in Vancouver. like I'm 45 minutes from the border, right? I'm 3 hours away from Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Culturally, I think a millennial that grew up in Seattle and a millennial that grew up in Vancouver are the same thing. We're the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
We're like, there are some subtle differences, but like I would consider myself pretty much, like in tune with any other sort of progressive leftist millennial in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot in common. I think that right now, what's happening south of the 49th parallel is very different from what's happening north of it.
Yep.
So so I think like the cultures are becoming more disparate, and it's going to be an interesting thing generationally when they get older.
Mm-hmm.
And Christmas I think is such a like canary in the coal mine, because um I think it is one of the few pieces of monoculture that we do have left,
Mm-hmm.
which is that, like, whether you are a Christian or not, pretty much everybody celebrates Christmas to
Yeah.
some degree,
Yeah.
right? Even if you are Jewish, even if you are Muslim, or Buddhist, or anything outside of mainstream religions, or atheist or anything. It's like because I think in our generation, Christmas shifted from being about, it's the one of the things that they complain about, is that Christmas shifted away from being about
A
the
religious
birth of
thing into a
Jesus
commercial thing. Yeah.
and turn into a commercial thing. But I think for me, like, Christmas is about family. It's about getting together. It is about community. That is what Christmas is about.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that we do at Christmas time are all in an effort to maintain that connection when it's more difficult. It's easier during the summer, right? We're all
Sure.
out and about. It's nice weather. It's not nice weather anymore. Now it's too hot, and it's smoky, and
Sure.
it's
And
a
that was
reminder that the
the
world is.
intention too,
Yeah.
way back when you don't have much, it's winter, people are sick, hungry, they don't have much and don't travel because it's
Well,
more
it's
treacherous, but you come
yeah,
together and you
yeah.
say, this is what food I have, I'm here to share it, I'm here to see you, make sure you're still alive,
It's
sort of
the
thing.
it's
And
so funny to me that the things that are persistent in Christmas across cultural boundaries are the pagan ideologies
hmm
that were co-opted by Christians by the church, in order to try and wipe out paganism. But in reality, what it has done is it has made Saturnalia really the thing that we're celebrating,
yeah.
because that tree, that's got nothing to do with Jesus. It has
Yep.
nothing to do with the nativity. It is like, that is a Saturnalia tradition. Is it's everything outside is dying except for these pine trees. Take the pine, bring it into your home to remind you that spring will come.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the idea. And we decorate it, and we celebrate it as a thing of, like, even in the midst of winter, life persists, right?
Right. Yeah.
um and then we build traditions around it, and then we build community around it, and togetherness, and all of that stuff. So it is a funny thing to me that the things that we identify as Christmas traditions and Christmas, paraphernalia, for lack of a better way of expressing it. It's like that stuff, none of that stuff is Christian, except for like nativity scenes.
hmm
That's that, like, when you really look around at your Christmas decorations, the one thing that is actually a reflection of Christianity and the nativity story is that maybe you've got a nativity scene in your house.
hmm and think
Everything
about
else
like the
is
Christmas
pagan.
Carol too is, you know, Tiny Tim lives not because, he got a bunch of presents. He was bought a turkey.
Yeah.
He was bought a turkey, and his father was given a bonus, which could not only feed him or get him medical care, but kept him warm. He was suddenly in a house that was, had coal readily available because now they could afford it. It was the gift of survival.
Yeah.
which sounds dumb when you say it, but if you think about like that time period, that was the whole thing of I give you the ability to keep going because we are supporting each other. I am supporting your father so he can support you, and we find joy in being able to do good together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it, I mean, it is. It's all hokey. It's corny, right? But I think that we need to just embrace the hokey, corny aspects of things again, because we have gotten too cynical, and we have gotten too like high minded and erudite and kind of academic about things.
Hmm.
I think because even on the left, I think like we're very academic about our progressive ideologies of like, well, there's a reason why we should do these things, and it's because statistically speaking, about like you can just hear people getting into
Yeah.
that stuff, and because that's all in an effort to downplay the corniness and the hokiness and what the kids these days would get mad at us for calling cringe, right?
Hmm.
Because now cringe isn't saying cringe is now cringe. So I we're through the looking glass, guys. I but I think that it is important to actually lift up those corny things and to say that like but this is what Christmas is about, right? And
Hmm.
to go back to movies like this and to go back to those ideas and say that like no, but it like because I think that it affects us. I think the message is that Scrooge goes from being a person that really hates Christmas and he's like, man, this time of year really pisses me off, right?
Hmm.
To being a person, not a person who likes Christmas, a person who understands what Christmas is about. And in the words of like, this is from the book, this is from this movie, he carries it with him all year long.
Hmm.
He makes it every day. He makes it the way that he lives his life. He takes it from a thing of like this time, hey, this time of year, it's really rough. We could use an extra donation. And Scrooge is transformed from a person who hates that time of year to a person who takes that time of year and carries it with them throughout the year every single
Hmm.
day to be generous and kind and thoughtful and taking care of his fellow person because he has the ability to do it.
Hmm.
And I think like that like could there be a more important message in 2025 for us to take away from Christmas? I don't think there is. Like,
Hmm.
I literally don't think that. Then only Sith deal in absolutes, but let me just deal in an absolute here. I think that this is the most important thing that we could be talking about right now, is that this attitude that we have at Christmas of like taking care of each other and togetherness and community and being kind and doing what's right. It's a thing that like we really 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 need to be doing every single day in everything that we do. And I'm not saying that I do it. I'm not saying that like that the left does it. The right doesn't. I think that everybody does their bits of charity, and I think that everybody falls short. Like I think that's why we tell stories like this. And
Hmm.
again, it's why A Christmas Carol persists and why there are in every generation we get another version of this story. We get different interpretations of it, we get different lenses put over it, but really like they do all tend to come back to the same thing,
Hmm.
to the same core ideas. It is, I think, yeah, like to varying degrees of effectiveness, but there's a reason why this one is so cherished and so well loved. And I think that it's because it is very faithful to what that message is and to what Charles Dickens was trying to say, not just in this, but in a lot of his work, about equality and about um, I think like generosity and kindness of spirit and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and how it's actually like the most important thing that we can do. So yeah, it's this was a very good pull, and even though we just put out our episode with Marie Claire for Big Trouble in Little China at the beginning of December, I was like, but we got I can't you and I can't miss this. This is one of our Christmas traditions now, right?
I'm gonna run out of Christmas films.
Yeah, I but um when you were like the Muppet Christmas Carol, I was like, my first instinct was like, I don't really, it's not really a perfect 10 for me. Um, but one of the things that I love about doing Perfect 10 is when I have these conversations with people and I find out why it's a perfect 10 for them.
Mhm.
And because we're friends and we're pretty like, I in line in a lot of our beliefs. It's like once you explain yourself,
Right. Then it
then
makes sense why.
it becomes a perfect 10 for me as well. And then if anybody else pressed me on it, I would just say a lot of the things that you're saying. Because yeah, because you're right. Because you're a because you're a well-spoken, intelligent person and you've brought very good arguments for why the Muppet Christmas Carol is a great Christmas movie and a perfect 10 movie. So now I walk away from it and I go like, yeah, yeah. So there's almost like there's a moment that I had to have with myself of like set aside your personal bias, which I explained earlier in this episode, I and your feelings about it, your emotions about it, and like get into it. And I'm glad that we did. Like I'm so glad that we did that. I did go like, yeah, let's do 2 episodes this month, even though I try and only do one a month. Um, like let's do it. Yeah, even though it's Christmas and it's hard to fit it into the schedule. And I did. It was like you were like, I got these 2 days, and I was like, cool, let's do that one. And then I had to come back to you and go, can't do it, got to move it. And it's like, so like it was not simple or easy for us to get together and do this episode, but I'm so glad that we did
Yeah.
because yeah, I think we come away from it better, and hopefully everybody listening
We
comes
all
away from it a
learned
little bit better.
something.
Yeah, yeah, there was a good message here. And it's and the whole point of Perfect 10 is positivity, right? So I know we kind of got into the weeds on the state of things in 2025. It's hard not to, but
Mhm.
especially when a movie like this is so illuminating to those problems, right?
Mhm.
Like it really really shines a light on that and goes like, hey, how come you're doing this again?
Yeah, well, that's what makes
Right,
it a timeless classic because no matter the
exactly.
time, it has a classic message.
So I know it's tough and everybody is stretched thin and we're all being asked to exercise kindness in a world that is not very kind to us. But yeah, I don't know. That's the lesson here, right? Is that you got to kind of do it anyways. Because we don't
A
want to.
little kindness every day can keep you from turning into a Scrooge.
Yeah, there you
Doesn't
go.
have to be big or grand, but just a little bit every day.
I think one of the most important takeaways of this story, right, is that it's everybody to the extent that they are able, right?
Mhm.
Because that's the thing is that Tiny Tim doesn't have anything to give anybody except spirit. Like that's
Mhm.
it. He's like Tiny Tim has an indomitable spirit and he does everything that he can to share that with everybody.
Yeah.
And like that's what he has to give. Scrooge has wealth. He has the money to buy the things that people need. And so to the extent that he is able to do kindness, he should do that kindness, right? And so should we, like everybody, and not feel guilty, not feel bad that it's all that you have to give,
No.
but just to give what you can. Like that's I think like that's such a great lesson from this story of like everybody that Scrooge encounters is doing their part. They're all trying. They're
Yeah.
all
Even
even
his nephew, and I
yeah,
mean, he makes it plain. You have barely a penny to your name, and he goes, "But the joy I share with others sustains me." That's not the exact words, but that's
yeah,
essentially what it is. I have very little to give, but I get like a moral sustenance
yeah,
from bringing cheer to others. It may not pay me in gold, but it pays me in a moral sense. It brings me joy. It gives me purpose.
Yeah.
And that's like another thing. So it's not, you can be Scrooge and you can throw money around, but you can be Tiny Tim and just be like there morally, to help guide someone, or you can be like his nephew, where it's just like any little bit of cheer I can give you can both make you feel better and make me feel more whole.
Yeah. I mean, I think these are the perfect notes to go out on. I think we did it.
I think so.
I think we made an episode. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being on this one. If people want to follow you on the internet, should they? Can they? Where?
They can. Mainly, I'm just on Blue Sky now. I'm still going by 87 Zoo Lemons. Yeah, I
Yeah.
talk about the state of things. I talk about art. I talk about fan fiction. I talk about movies. I talk about the silly things my dogs and my cat do. Um, just a variety of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I endorse. You're a great follow. So everybody should go and follow you on Blue Sky, and hang out over there in the better place. It's
the,
not. It's
the
not, I
better
wouldn't call it.
butterfly place.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it the good place as opposed to the bad place that is X, but it's definitely a better place.
Yeah,
It's definitely a
that's
better
fair.
place. Yeah, it's a good. I think it is a pretty decent place to find community and to connect with other people, which is what social media is supposed to be for. So
And to tie in with our message, if you're new to Blue Sky, it's all about building a community, putting it together the old-fashioned way. You find
yeah,
something you like, you see if they seem like, they got some decent takes, comment on their stuff, say something positive. That's how you build a community. It's not about hot takes, clicks, likes. It's not like Twitter.
yeah.
It's you find a community and you nourish it by giving positive feedback, and then eventually you will get it too. That's how you get good engagement.
There you go. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank
And
you.
we'll do this again in another 12 months. But I thank you everybody for listening. And you can join the conversation over on our Discord server at thunderquack.com/Discord. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast service and leave a rating and review and share it with a friend. Until next time, remember, it's not about the score, it's about the love. Stay frosty. Thunderquack Perfect 10 is hosted by me, Michael Cohen. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TQPerfect10 and join the community at thunderquack.com/Discord. This podcast is supported by listeners just like you over at patreon.com/Thunderquack. Head over there to get early access to episodes, exclusive podcasts, and more. This show is a part of the Thunderquack Podcast Network. Head over to thunderquack.com for more great shows. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.